How's it going, guys? Correct Rack here. Today we're going to be discussing how I obtained and lost a transgender girlfriend when I was 14 years old, while we play Postal Brain Damaged. So, basically, I have always been like a mild supporter of the transgender community. It's always just kind of been my thing, slightly, like low-key, like not high-key. And I generally can't say that I've dated any trans women recently or plan to anytime soon, but when I was 14, I was like dating this weird transgender girl. So this story takes place quite a while ago, about 10 years now. This involves the character known as Alchemist Area, Maxwell Hall, who has been off of the internet for like 6 years now at this point. Basically, me and this guy, and then this transgender girl had this friend group. And this was all the way back in like 2014. This was literally like Trillion. Like, you know, the social media application Trillion or whatever it is? Yeah, we were using that. We were literally the bestest of friends. But we had a very unhealthy relationship, basically. It was basically hang out every night, hang out every day, pretty much talk like brothers, talk about moving in with one another, which I'm so glad did not materialize. Well, actually, it was not a transgender girl in the group. It was me, Maxwell Hall, and this guy named Dan. Dan was our age. Now, I don't mind saying his name because I don't think anyone's going to know who he is. There's probably like maybe 12 people that will actually have met this person or know who I'm talking about. So, I'll just say it. Their name was Dan. And basically, Dan was very weird. I mean, we were all very weird. Maxwell Hall was like, I'm going to animate children's shows. And I was like, I'm going to make children's shows that are vulgar and sexual. And Dan was pretty much like, I'm going to animate things in Minecraft. And it just worked. We'd get together. We'd watch porn. Not because we were gay and masturbating together, but because we were kids and we were like, porn? What the hell is that? And we'd look at it and be like, bro, there's literally tits. Oh my god. I know it sounds like a gay three-way, but it was not. Imagine it like a group of middle school boys who are so close that it's inappropriate. And basically that's what it was. Well, eventually, with time, I started to get more and more distanced from Maxwell Hall and more introduced to other characters, including Dan, who I spent way too much time with. This was also around the same time Potato of Awesome cut me off. So I was pretty low on friends, and basically I just started hanging out with Dan so much, and he changed his name eventually to Danny, or something like that, or Daniela, and I didn't know what being transgender was. I didn't even think about that shit, and I was like, yo, what the hell? Like, what does that mean? And he was like, well, I'm a female. I've always presented as a female. And at the time, I thought that was the most ridiculous fucking concept in the world. I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Okay, Daniela. However, the porn watching persisted, and with Maxwell, and however, it got so bad that it just became normalized. Like, just being sexual and disgusting and inappropriate over the internet with each other was not seen as a sex act. It was seen as totally normal. So, me and Daniela hung out way too much, and we started sharing our favorite porns with each other, and not very often. We started to talk less and less over time, but I'd be like, this is the porn that I like, and he'd be like, well, this is the porn that I like, and we'd be like, huh. And the porn he showed me was Five Nights at Freddy's porn. And it got to a point where we were having actual sexual role plays over Skype and Discord and Trillion. I'd be like, oh yes, Daniela, we are totally frotting right now. Well, anyways, this progressed into pretty much talking every day like a relationship, sexual roleplay, sexual discussion, just open sexuality. This was pretty much my girlfriend at this point, even though I don't think they would ever say that I was, because it's fucking embarrassing and traumatizing, and this memory deserves to be locked at the bottom of the vault. So we just kept sexually role-playing. At this point, Maxwell Hall was completely out of the picture. I was hardly talking to him. Maybe like once a week we would talk at this point. He was like, I'm going to become the next BFOD superstar, and I need to practice. And I was like, what? Okay, whatever. So I'm gonna have sex with Danny over the internet now. And that's what we just did. Sexual role play. Until, for some reason, there was a conflict, I think, between Daniela and her dad. And eventually Maxwell got in on the sauce. And me and Maxwell pretty much were like, we're going to ruin his life. Well, he didn't say that, but that's pretty much what the plan was. The plan was we were going to make Daniela come out to their homophobic dad as transgender in a way that would get them kicked out. Which is so fucking awful. Why were we doing that? We were just having sex with this person. But yeah, we saw the opportunity for power, and we were both like, oh my god, we could ruin him for no reason. So we did. And we kept trying to convince him to like come out to his dad, like come out to your dad with force, like be proud. And it just didn't end well. I think it ended in him blocking me, or her, sorry, her. I'm not trying to misgender. I am not Matt Walsh. I am Matt Holman. Yeah, so at this point, he blocked, or she blocked us, me and Maxwell, I'm pretty sure. And me and Maxwell were like, I will say there was a moment, my mom was like really creeped out by Daniela. Like, thought Daniela was super duper creepy and just off. And one night, when I suggested renting a car to meet with Daniela, which I'm so glad did not happen, but then my mom went through all of my internet chats with Daniela, and just it was so embarrassing because all of my sex role plays were there, and it was exactly as bad as my mom thought. But I think it was the fact that this person was also my age. She didn't like. I guess she didn't get too freaked out by it, and then she just kind of forgot about it. So there was a period of time after this where I was really bored. I was hardly talking to anybody, and I was just kind of spending all my time doing fucking nothing. And I was so bored. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to reach out to old friends. So I reached out to Daniela. I was like, yo, what's up, Daniela? And they were like, oh, hi. And our friendship continued for probably a good year. Now this is like 2015 at this point, 2016, still a long time ago. And, well, we are talking, and I start to realize something's just kind of off about Daniela. Like, just the thought processes she had didn't make a lot of sense and were really aggressive and like really mean and stubborn. Like, I remember just like hideously stubborn. I thought it was so obnoxious. It would make me so angry. I'd be like, hey, fact. And they'd be like, no. And I'd be like, yeah. And they'd be like, no. And it would just keep escalating until they blocked me. And then they'd usually unblock me. There was a weird thing that this person was fixated on. They were absolutely fixated on Texas. And they were absolutely fixated on Texas being its own country. And they really believed that Texas was its own country. And they weren't joking. And every time you'd be like, Texas is not its own country, they'd be like, fuck you. It got to a point where I started to really hate this relationship and want nothing to do with it anymore. So he blocked me once, and then I just didn't reach out again. I didn't try to get unblocked. I didn't respond to anything. I just didn't care. And it was over after that. Well, fast forward a couple years. I'm like literally 18. And I reach out again. I don't know why. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. I don't even know how I got their contact information. And they answered it, and they were like, please don't message me anymore. I know exactly who you are. I was like, why? And they were like, I have deep trauma from what you did, and I never want to talk to you ever again. And I was like, but he's like, you give me a fight or flight reaction every time that you reach out to me. And I was like, oh. He was like, I hope you get serious psychological help for your very obvious disorders. And he blocked me. And that was the last we ever talked. And that was about 6 years ago at this point, so a pretty fucking long time. And I don't plan on reaching out to Daniela ever again. Looking back, this story is really creepy. Everything about it sounds off. I mean, just everything. Not the transgender part, that's whatever, but just like something about the whole sexual component and the ritualistic element and the internet. In fact, it was just through the internet only. It was like kind of parasocial and so obsessive, and it took up all of my time for Daniela. It's like you taking up all your time for the Chucky doll. It's just creepy as fuck. And It's a creepy story. I think I was creepy. I think this transgender person was creepy. We were both being super duper creepy. I don't even recognize the person that I was at all. When I look at the person that I was was I having transgender Five Nights at Freddy's sex on the internet? Now, I don't know how Daniela feels about me now, or if they even remember who I am, but I doubt they feel very good about me still. If I could remember more than 5 memories with them, I think that, well, maybe I could apologize. I'm sorry for trying to make you come out to your dad as a transgender person so you would get kicked out. But you see, there's a silver lining in this story. Well, us 3 men all moved on to greater things. Maxwell Hall, Cracked Rack, Matthew Holman, and Daniela. All of us are functioning, happy, powerful adults. And there is absolutely nothing dysfunctional about us now, just like we predicted back then. So that's all. See ya.